Prince told
Ditto.
you. Yep.
There was no called board meetings in the off cycle, no.
Odd. Yeah, apparently. Did I forget to unmute something? No?
I've been hearing you, but
How about now? Maybe it just didn't like me? I mean, all my stuff shows it's working. So checking. Huh. Okay, maybe YouTube just hates me
Allie
today.
said she hears you now.
Anyways, so let's start that over. As I was saying, we usually just start with the recap of the OS cycle, board actions and votes. There were some discussions, but there were no actions or votes or any official decisions that were made since the last board meeting. So that brings us to the open session, which is the first 30 minutes of each meeting, where members of the audience or anybody in general can bring up any issues that are not on the schedule for this evening or any questions or concerns they'd like to bring up. I am not seeing anything coming up in chat, so we can roll on. If anybody does have any questions or anything, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will get to them as soon as we see them. Next is the equipment rentals and any planned discussions from visiting parties. I've not been informed of any visiting parties, and I don't necessarily see anybody else out there. I know we don't have any equipment rental requests yet. So I think we can move on. So let's roll right on in with alphabetical order to Troy with Enemy Detour.
So you think not last weekend, but the past weekend, and a half ago or so, we had the Enemy Detour online event. Went very well, so thank you to thank you to the teams or the collective team that worked on that. We had about 90 days to put something like that together, which was pretty short notice. Had very few or very, from the reports that I'm aware of, minor issues. Were few, but the team dealt with them swiftly. Yeah, like I said, they're very minor. We don't have the stats that we will have. They've been working on compiling those with the team that will have that information. So I don't have those yet. Um, so those will come later. We have a meeting scheduled. The executive team will be meeting with the folks from the master team that helped put that together. The chat mods and the hosts and everybody that worked on that. I attended, I guess, pretty much the whole thing from start to finish. I take that back. I wasn't able to get on until about 7:15 Friday, so just a little bit past the start. I missed a little bit of the first panel, but otherwise I was able to stay signed on for all of the simultaneous YouTube and Twitch stuff, as well as in the Discord. Seemed like everybody had a really good time. It's a different. We're aware that it's a different experience of of a con, or how to experience a con, um, than we're used to, or what we put on. But um, it's an enjoyable element and something that we can look at, how to retain bits and pieces of, and that sort of enjoyable factor. We'll be looking at getting some feedback from the public that attended on what they thought, what they enjoyed, that sort of thing. Um, just to make sure that we're able to pull from that. It's like, again, it's different feedback from what we would see from an in-person con. Um, Hopefully, as far as Detour staff goes, they were able to see the email. We took a look at postmortem has been relatively the same. Not that that's a bad thing for a number of years for us. We've tried to incorporate some different elements into it, bringing the hotel in, especially when we changed venues, to sort of collaborate with them, how things went for and sort of getting a little bit more direct line of feedback to them. They wanted to be involved, that sort of thing. Sort of looking at it from that point of view as well. We wanted to make sure that efficiency-wise, at least, was sort of something that we didn't want to ask all staff to join us on in a meeting. We felt like it would be a very short call to say, we weren't sure the percentage of staff that attended the event, that sort of thing. So we kind of figured we would not forego it, but sort of combine that with our first meeting back. Part of what we would have been looking to do with the postmortem was also look forward into the next con cycle. So rather than split those up into how did you like or thoughts on the online convention, and here's what we're looking to do, and thoughts moving forward, we thought that we would just do that with the first meeting back. Pardon me. So sort of focus down to getting that feedback from the team that worked on the event, and sort of how the things affected them. We knew the things, like I said, was the obviously the short notice that they had, but they were really nose to the grindstone for that 90 days, and especially that weekend. So wanting to get information back from them on how that experience could be better for them, what sort of tools, what sort of things could have made that thing easier for them. Whether we're looking at if we ever had to do something like that again, or just incorporating any sort of online capacity into in-person event again. So for that reason, we just forewent sort of the usual post-mortem event. So outside of that, I don't know if it's on the agenda. I sent the board the 2025-2026 contracts to look over. I'd like to get those back to Hyatt. They would be sort of considered typically the has been standard contract language. So if there's something you'd like to look at changing or um, negotiating different parts of the contract or rediscussing some portion of the language, then let me know. I'd have to revisit that with the Hyatt. Otherwise, we'll look at getting those signed and then working with Kim to work with the Hyatt on the payment for those, not the full payment, but obviously the holding payment for those 2 years. And as a reminder that those 2 years of the contract, yeah, those would be the last 2 years that we have signed. So if we wanted to revisit that at any point, then we have time to do that. We will be, our vice chairs, we will be holding sort of an executive postmortem to look towards the future. Then the vice chairs will be meeting with their departments to do their annual reviews with the departments. It'll be a little easier this year. I mean, just there wasn't as many departments involved in the online, so it'll be a bit, other than more of an annual review, it'll be a little bit more like perhaps some things that we might want to try to incorporate with various departments this year, things that we may have been looking to improve on the last time we held an online or an in-person convention, things, just things like that, collaborating with the departments and sort of picking up the ball where we left it in 2019 as we move towards an in-person convention and brushing the dust off and moving forward. So we'll be doing that as we have the downtime before we pick up meetings again. We have the schedule out. We worked with Ashley in getting that schedule together for the con cycle all the way through detour next year. As the email said, right now they're all scheduled for virtual meetings until such time we are aware of a change. So unless anybody has any questions, really everything.
I have a,
Yes.
I did not get a copy of the contracts. Can you resend that?
Yeah.
Maybe it got lost in my board email, but
I don't remember seeing it either.
Well, yes. Unless there's any other questions, while I'll let you guys move on. I'll get signed into my email here and see what the problem is, and I'll get that resent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Let me check the chat here. Next, that brings us over to charities, which is
Hi.
currently being overseen by Dave.
Yes. So, as you know, I did send Minneapolis Public Libraries had asked for a donation this year. As you know, per our previous discussion, I politely informed them that we are focusing on our core at this time. However, it probably will be open for next year if they want to consider it after our first physical con. Okay, maybe I'm having difficulty with the bylaws, but if somebody could help me with two things, I need to find any references to not NOT having a loan policy, and the current operating guidelines for the community fund and the education fund. I want to make sure these are all documented. To when we find a charities coordinator, I can hand them my
So
binder in there, And we don't even need to talk about it now. All I just need is to someone say, hey, could you point that out to me
Well,
or forward me the current operating procedures at the time?
I was just gonna say I don't think any of that is in the bylaws specifically.
Might have been
Okay.
policy.
If they exist, they are in policy.
Yes.
Where is that in policy then? If someone could just forward that to me, that'd be great so I can take a look at it and focus as we need.
On the ATC page, under the Documents tab, there is a section called Board Policies. And it's got all of our voted on policies listed.
So is
in
there's any other place that there are procedures set out for the community fund? If it's not there, it doesn't exist? Is that what you're saying?
It is right there, June 13th, 2011. 2011.6.13.1. Establish Animation Cities Community Fund.
Okay. Then I'll take a look at it. So we don't have anything for the education fund, and we do not have a policy stating perfunctorily we do not do loans, correct?
The loans are a state statute. I'll have to look it up again. I thought I sent it to you before, but I'll look it up again for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if there's no loans, then okay, then we don't. I thought I was asked to put it in the bylaws, but if it's in the state statutes, then I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's
work for me.
Yeah, that's something that's been brought up
That's all I
multiple
had.
times over the last several years, and it's we keep running back to. Legally, we can't, and if we have in the past, we really probably shouldn't have.
Well,
I think what came up before is that you wanted an answer if someone asked you, and that's why you wanted the specific statute at the time. But that was like 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay. So, yeah. So, yeah, I'm done. Thank you. Charities is done.
Alrighty then.
Why did that close?
Next, we have our communities, communications and SOS, which is currently overseen by myself. At this time, we really don't have any updates on those. They, as with charities, with everything winding down because of COVID, we have not been really doing anything. So those are just kind of in a holding pattern until things change to the point where we can start doing things again. Next is moving on to finance with Kim.
All right. Let's hope I can read my paperwork because I'm not got contacts and my glasses aren't very good. So I apologize if it takes me a while to read a number or two. Yesterday, you should have gotten the financials. I don't know that there's anything major on them. You will notice on the income that there were ATC memberships purchased for the upcoming year that totaled 7. So I'm assuming that those people will be eligible for voting in the next couple of weeks. Christina, you'll just have to let me know if you need to know who they are.
Yep, we should have the list finalized of who is eligible to vote by this Friday.
That's fine. Under expenses, I probably note that e-ballot was on there for double the normal cost. That's because in February they bill at the end of the month. So February rolled on to March 1st, and then we were billed at the end of March. So if you looked back on your February one, you would note that we weren't billed at that time. I don't know that there's anything else that maybe stands out. If you have a question on something, just let me know. Currently, the bank account balance is $164,063.30. And then the education fund at $2,262.49. And the leg account at $12,998.54. Those two accounts obviously are unchanged since there's been no donations in them at all. I have a couple of things. Tristan and I guess everybody, but mostly Tristan, did you get the email for the trademark issue that I sent the other day?
Yes, I did get that.
Okay.
um,
Yes, it's up to you if you're gonna follow through with it or not.
basically, when I read it, I don't think that applies to us because it, from what I read of the issue, it had to do with um, organizations that were contracting someone to renew their trademarks on their behalf, and they were doing things fraudulently.
I just
Um,
thought maybe it had to do with the person that tried to take the
Detour trademark.
yes.
I gotta go back and double check because I just got an email right around the start of the Detour event, which we're a little busy for. Haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Confirming the
Okay.
changes that I made on that several months ago, that they were done being reviewed.
All right. And then we did get the official letter from our Attorney General Keith Ellison that our annual report was received by the state of Minnesota and accepted. So we are good to go there. As you all, you'll see it in next month's financials, but I just thought I'd give you all a heads up. As you know, Lauren set up the online store for merchandise, and that went live the first of the month. And this morning, we received our first deposit that Lauren swept into the bank account at $1,500.82. So you'll see that as income next month. And I believe that store will stay open until the 30th. So we should just try to push those sales. Other than that, I think that's everything that I have right now.
Okay. Did anybody else have any questions or concerns about anything any of the coordinators went over yet before we go on to the rest of the meeting?
Justin, just a quick question about that DOJ letter. Did you actually look at what the charges were? Because they were listed as mail fraud. So I didn't know. It sounded almost like identity theft rather than
Yeah,
scamming.
I did not get a
fraud.
chance to read the whole thing because of when Kim sent it, but from what I read, it was
Because generally, if your name pops up in something like that, it means they tried doing something. So I guess I would just
yeah.
try to.
Well,
If I get a chance, I'll let you know
so
to
what
look at the charging document, but it's labeled mail fraud.
yeah, so what we're assuming this was, and I got to reach out to double check to make sure that this is us, is the Anime Detour trademark was up for renewal last year, yeah, about a year ago. It was June or July. I went to renew it and noticed that somebody else, completely unaffiliated with us in any way, had used a bunch of spam information to register our trademark in their name. I did adjust. I put in the ATC information, my information, and the president's information. Corrected all of that and submitted that for adjustment with proof. And they just got back to me about a week or so ago. It took quite a while. And then I did do the ATC. So that's what we're assuming. I am assuming that was from. And then the ATC trademark I did just the other month, like a month or two ago. And there were no issues with that one at all.
Okay, then yeah, that sounds about right. Okay.
So, unless anybody feels they need a quick break, I think we can keep on rolling. So we will roll on to the annual meeting discussion. So this year, we are going to be holding our annual. As a precursor, in the past, we have always held our annual meeting during the Anime Detour postmortem. However, with our bylaw changes, we felt that it would be better to kind of push that distinction that we've been trying to make for a number of years, that Anime Detour and Anime Twin Cities are, while they are part of the same entity, that they are two separate subjects. So we have decided to make it so that the Anime Twin Cities annual meeting is not to be held at the same time as the anime detour post-mortem. So with that in mind, during our last meeting, we discussed and decided and agreed that the annual meeting is going to be held on. I get a lot of feedback there, or is that just me? Okay. Anyways, it is going to be held at the end of this month, on March or May 1st. I believe it was 1:00, right?
Right.
Yes.
1
Yes, yes.
p.m. Saturday, May 1st.
Yes. That is when the meeting is going to be held. Voting will be closing before the meeting begins, so that we can tally the votes and announce the newly elected candidates before the end of the meeting. During that meeting, I will be giving a short update on the status of the organization, a few other details, and there's going to be a couple other updates regarding some other parts of the organization as well. The voting period for the election is going to be held for the 24 hours prior to the meeting. You will be contacted if you are eligible to vote. Just as a reminder, to be eligible, you must have attended 60% of the meetings held by any single anime, or not anime teacher, but any single ATC coordinator who has held at least 4 meetings, and or 60% of the Anime Twin Cities board meetings, as well as you must have a valid ATC membership, which that does, your current ATC membership, which has given you voting rights for this previous year, does expire right before that meeting starts, or before the voting starts. So in order to be able to vote, you must renew your ATC membership, which is $15, and that can be done individually through the ATC website. Unfortunately, if you have not met those, you will not be eligible to vote. For the last month or so, we have put out, or we have been looking and accepting any candidates. Christina, I've not seen any, because I know they were supposed to be going to you. Have we gotten any board candidates at this time?
We have not received any emails for this at this time.
Okay. So just as a reminder, the positions that are open on the board are the president, which is the seat that I currently hold. And I believe it's John and Dave are the 2 member at-large positions that are up for re-election, as well as the secretary, which is Christina.
I don't know if that's
Member-
correct. Hold on.
As memory serves, a board member or member at large position is good for 2 years, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
it's
John's is through
Anthony.
2022. It's Anthony's
Oh, yes.
and Dave's. Yep.
Yes. I'm sorry. It's been so long since I've seen Anthony that I forgot. My apologies, good sir. That was not intentional. So yes, we do have
Not
one.
enough
I was going to say, wait a minute.
time.
Wait a minute.
So yes, it's so Dave's seat is up for re-election, and we do have one seat that has been open for the last several weeks since Anthony stepped down from his position as member at large. So as things sit, the majority of us can reapply to run, or can reapply to be elected or run as for most of these positions. If such as in my case, where I have served 2 terms, according to our bylaws, I must abstain for 1 full 2-term cycle, or 2-year cycle, before I am eligible to run for a position on the board again. The exception to this rule, which if we don't get any applicants, we may be looking at, is that if if the incoming number of board members does not fill the required number of seats, then those leaving can rerun, even if they have served their 2 terms. Just as a reminder, the deadline for applications to be put on. Oh, Jesus! Sorry, excited dog. Just kick. It launched itself across the living room at me. Just as a reminder, the deadline for these applications, we did Christina did send out an email a couple of days ago to the ATC staff list, and I did post on several of the social media pages today. As a reminder that the deadline for applications is 11:59 tonight. After tonight, we won't be accepting applicants. Anyone looking to be a candidate at that time would be a write-in during that 24-hour election period, or that 24-hour voting period, the day before the annual meeting. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or anything they want clarified on that?
So I guess so if we end up not getting enough applicants to fill open positions, and the people that technically don't qualify due to term limits, they can't apply until after we haven't gotten enough. But so then they would still be a write-in.
Essentially,
guess.
is my understanding of how we have it written. Because how our bylaws state is that the minimum that our board must have, we must have a president, a treasurer, and 3 members at large for a total of 5 board members. So as long as we have that, we are within our bylaws. If we do not meet that, then people are eligible to rerun, even if they have met term limits. And thank you, Ashley, for taking a look at Kevin's statement there.
The annual meeting is all official now, being on the calendar.
Oh, did I miss
Yay.
a statement?
Yeah, Kevin pointed out that our annual meeting was not listed on the iCalendar.
Oh. Oops.
Actually, I think I might be the only person with access to that right now.
And actually, I'm looking at my
I
calendar
think
for
it
Google,
used to
and
be Anthony, but
it is not listed on my Google Calendar.
Yeah. I just added it to the ATC calendar. So,
Okay.
yeah, okay, yeah, it's on there now.
Okay, awesome.
Yep, it's showing up on mine, so you're good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, thank you.
all right then. So it doesn't look like anybody. Yes, Dave. You're muted.
Okay, just to refresh, since people are going to be concerned about being members tonight, where can we pay for this membership? Is
Right
it just
up.
on the website?
Kim,
yes.
that would be your question.
Oh, well, you usually answer it. Yes, you may go to the Anime Twin City website and
It's under About Us.
About Us, and then there would be
Membership.
And you guys take Discover?
Yes.
Sorry, I just looked down at my budget and I said, oh, oops. So just because everybody else in the chat wanted to know that. So
It would cost you $15 unless you'd like to make an additional donation, which would be greatly appreciated.
And we're not taking paper applications, are we? Like check or anything?
Well, I guess if you can get one to me in plenty of time.
Okay.
I mean,
I honestly
I
didn't
think
know because I don't think I've asked that question.
It would be just as easy for you to do it online through your bank card or credit card as it would be for you to try to catch me at my home and have me have a check and make me get to the bank. That is very difficult to get to these days.
You are not wrong. I just figured I'd ask since I know there's still the occasional person that is a stickler and prefers paper. All right then. Does anybody else have any questions before we move on? Right, not seeing anything in chat. And no hands raised here. So we will move on to the next subject. The GPS funding discussion. This was based around our so in the last few years we've done we have renewed our 3-year contract with GPS. That has the fees for that have been base of $9,000, and then with their fundraising, that can reach up to an additional $9,000 to $18,000. The biggest concern at the time was with our non-use of that for such a long time with COVID, if that was worth continuing. Now, in our contract, it does say that we need to give them a 1-year notice. However, at this point, we are within the last year of our 3-year agreement with GPS. So I know we had a handful of discussions since the last meeting where we've talked about this, and we kind of rounded down that we're going to sit down and have some talks with GPS, take a look at things, have some discussions about dollars and how everything works out, and see where it goes from there. Just because I know most of us that I have talked with have agreed that we do have a pretty good space for the prices that we are paying, and like things such as free spaces like libraries and stuff may not be as I guess you could say reliable, and to have all of the same things that we get at GPS. So if we can maintain things with GPS without putting ourselves in a bad situation, we're gonna see what we can do with that. Did I explain that well enough, or was there anything I missed from those of you that were in those discussions?
No, that's pretty accurate.
Troy, you're muted.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think some of the key components were, essentially looking to, so while, potentially losing that as an item on our ledger, would help us. It certainly doesn't help GPS. Also looking at it as even staying where we are with GPS doesn't necessarily mean they can automatically continue to function under these, current restrictions or with what their financial situation is. So if we were to try to consider locating a place with the sort of scheduling flexibility and the space that we ourselves use, notwithstanding the rest of the community, I think that I'm not certain, but I would imagine whether you look at, annual price or price per square foot, uh, we most likely would find ourselves with a higher line item on our ledger than we currently have. Um, less the less what we're helping to provide the community. Not saying that to the board, but just sort of that's one of the things that was our talking point in those discussions is trying to, should worst case scenario from an ATC perspective, trying to replicate that space on our own would most likely come at a higher price point. And as Tristan was saying, through a lot of the research that I did, while there are free spaces for that we could use for our meetings of various square footage, I think trying to replicate the consistency of being able to use those spaces for whether it be for either A, the monthly board meetings, or B, the up until January, the monthly staff meetings, or after January, typically when we switch to twice monthly staff meetings, and then the asterisk being any other um, APC detour related events that we might want to hold there. Um, Scheduling wise, being able to count on that would be very difficult, would present a new logistical layer that right now we don't have the infrastructure or somebody doing, and would certainly need to task somebody with doing. But certainly, most likely with the library and things like that, we would have most likely more entities trying to secure that space on weekend dates more likely than we do with people trying to get that space through GPS, where we have a partnership with them and have some preferred scheduling opportunities and things like that. So I think there sure seems to be a lot more benefits to us, to our partnership, and to the community to working with GPS and staying with what has been working and trying to make that continue to work for us, and a hope that the work that GPS is doing and continue to work for them. Then, like I said, trying to replicate that elsewhere does not solve a problem for us, and could very well come at a higher cost. But I think that's essentially where we came out of on the conversation. The storage was the smallest of the issues. We could easily move our stuff over there. I think the other thing that we brought up that I think was the only thing that you didn't mention, Tristan, is internet reliability. Is that many of the libraries say that they have internet equipment and reliability, but as of now, we don't know what that capability is. So we're not really able to reliably state what that is until we got in there and saw it or tried to use it. So then that presents where we would have to try and cart this stuff around. Should we not be, so using the library system, we would be able to probably secure a library space for the month, but it might not be the same library. So this month we're at this library, next month so I think particularly with specifically, I think my thought was with the board meetings, we really need to have once we return to physical meetings. Not that it's much different for staff meetings, but I think particularly with our board meetings, we really need to have that that consistent meeting space for those monthly board meetings. And I think very similar with the staff meetings, but I think that's sort of what we came up with as a result of that research and that discussion.
Thank you very much for that. It definitely covers a few things that I missed.
Or I just use more words.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Finer details. I didn't know. Didn't know how much detail people were interested in. So, all right then. Unless anybody else has any other questions or concerns about that before we roll on to our next discussion item. All right then. Our last discussion item for the evening is the Anime Detour badge prices. I know, being neither in registration nor in the financing, this would not necessarily be my ballpark to discuss the details of.
I think unfortunately for everybody's ears, that boomerangs back to me.
Yep. But just think, Dave did raise his hand. You're muted.
You're muted, Dave.
We're on the ball.
Anyway, I was about to if that's the chairman. Hi, John.
Bye, John.
If you're the chairman, I'm just curious. When does that decision have to be made by? Opening of registration?
You think a few years ago we had for a number of years we had done it. I think it sort of hops or bounced around. For a while, it was not for, so it wouldn't be. We wouldn't be deciding now for
2022.
for 2022. We'd be doing it so like 18 months out,
So
and then for a couple of years it reverted back to the one coming up, and then I think now we're back to 18 months out. Well, now we're full on out. I don't know that there's a policy or a procedure because it also went from the board having decided to at some point last year. I could go back and look at the month, but I don't recall off the top of my head where that was sort of had always been previously decided, as you know, as a previous member of the board, been decided at a board level. It was then I don't know the proper word, not reverted to, but it was given to
Chairman.
to sort of decide that, and obviously if there's any sort of concerns or anything. So I think for preparation and things like that, and to be able to sort of, publicize and things like that, it probably would be, best to, not try to, because it had been previously had in like September, October, was sort of when it was normally scheduled at the board level. So that's why we weren't trying to decide it for the convention like 6 months away. So I guess that's why I used the 18 months, though I realize having that discussion now, we're almost a full calendar year away. So yes, we would obviously want to decide, if we were to look at raising it before registration opened. So that being said, I could give sort of the, I guess the quickest answer probably is right now for a number of reasons, but even I think, pre-COVID, though I'm certainly, willing to hear anybody, in the chat or board members, perspectives as board members or detour staff, detour attendees, etc. The feedback input. I don't think pre-COVID, nor do I think right now, even more so, kind of coming out of COVID, is probably right now our best move to raise badge prices. I think the financials certainly, if all things considered stayed the same as far as rough approximation of badges sold, is advantageous to us. It's tough to say without a post that projection. I'd certainly hope that we sell more. That would be, my preference. It's tough to. There haven't been a lot of conventions that have returned yet from COVID, if any, so it's hard to make that. Do you have a question, Dave?
I actually have a like something that may inform you that I'd done on my other hat for my other organization. As you know, I'm the guy who does the money by the memberships and the plane tickets for our space camp scholarship. And so when the space scholarship for 2021 was announced, I called up to get the spots, and they said after when it was decided they were going to accept um, new spaces for space camp for 2021, they had a 150-person waiting list within 48 hours.
And that's very much what we're hoping to see. We're trying to be entirely optimistic, and we're hoping that certainly not only a detour, but um, convention, pop culture event wide, we're hoping to sort of see that excitement to return to those sort of events to I don't want to say appropriate numbers, obviously numbers that we can safely manage, that sort of thing, whether it be um, you know safe within sanitization things and things like that, like COVID precautions, but also staff and programming, all the things that we were worried about um, precautionary wise before COVID, but also with that new layer of concern. Um, so also particularly for lack of a better word, optics, and it could be very tough PR move in terms of having been for dark for 2 years, and then the first year back to um, kick up the ticket price. Not saying it can't be done. It's just um, it's a tough spin. And it could certainly be looked at as trying to make up for 2 years of decreased income. Um, Prior to COVID, we shied away from it or were hesitant to do it. Um, we have I think we have a pretty good, a pretty good price point right now. And one of the things that we were really looking to do in some areas, there's a ton of things that we do really well. There's some things that we look to improve on, but that's the same thing we do every year. It doesn't mean that something we're trying to improve in is something that we're doing poorly. There's just always a few things to tweak and improve, and those things can change by year. This location might have worked well for something one year, and it doesn't mean that it's something that turned bad. So we were very, for example, we were very excited about our guest roster that we had built. In some ways, particularly, it really worked well with the theme, but they weren't only uh, talent that was only involved in old school anime. They also had roles in anime that was current. So we had some programming ideas lined up. Um, we had some really great programming things happening. So there was a lot of things. We were really excited about the show that we had built for 2019, and had hopes that we put that in front of all of the people that were coming, and then hopefully some of the stuff within the convention running community. It's very tough to see a really large increase from year to year. I mean, you can certainly do it if you bring in you know some voice actors that are very popular this year, or that it can be done. It can be tough financially to manage that, but a lot of the things that you're trying to do might not pay off for 2 or 3 years. It can be a slow build to try and build that. So that was sort of what we were looking at pre-COVID, is to try and just continue to improve, and get to the point where not only that what we were offering, we thought it was okay to sort of bump up that price point, but at some point we also have to be cognizant of our finances, and that um, all of the years that we weren't increasing our badge price, um, the cost of what we were putting on wasn't also stalled. So it's that behind the scenes that I realize, a lot of our attendees aren't always aware of. That each year there is inflation, there is additional costs, and sometimes those costs can go up considerably. Um, there's our food trucks went up considerably from one year to the next. Sometimes the costs from a tech standpoint can go up from one year to the next very considerably. Internet costs, it just, and those are things that we don't provide. So it's not something you can really shop around. These are the costs to bring in the items that we need to put on the show for the people that we want to pay. So we try to keep it affordable. We did the family pricing a few years ago so that we could encourage families to come and things like that. So I think all that being considered, and yeah, I think COVID forced its way into the discussion. I don't know that this would be the year to consider that, particularly again a little bit also because we're not sure what things will look like. We're maybe not hopelessly optimistic, but we really want to come back, and hopefully everybody that came to Detour and more will come to Detour. We hope that all of our brother and sister cons and all of the conventions across the United States get to return to the success they had and more. Obviously, we're primarily focused on ours, and we're hoping to return to the same level of success we had and then some. So I guess ultimately I'd like to hope. I'd hate to wonder we didn't if we impacted attendance by adjusting the price point some, and you'd never really be able to prove that except for by feedback. If you polled people post Detour and said, did you not attend because we raised the price? So ultimately, if we did adjust the price, it'd be something I think we'd only want to consider a minimal amount. But ultimately, I think that at least for this first year back from COVID, all things considered, we probably want to maybe take a wait and see what things look like. So the following year, at least we have this return year to be able to build some projections on attendance wise and see how things worked out. John, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to say that you brought up several good
You're not
points
muted, but I can't.
regarding the.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, yeah, so I was going to say you brought up a lot of good points regarding raising the price on the admissions tickets, and I feel that this is not a good year to do it because a lot of people have been struggling financially, and having them want to attend Anime Detour and to find out that the price has gone up would potentially make it so they can't attend, and that's not what we want right now. So I feel that at least for this coming convention, it would be in our best interest to not raise prices.
And it's probably something that even though the I guess the start of the discussion or the whatever we want to call it has switched to Anime Detour. I'm certainly it's not something that we shouldn't revisit every year. It's not something we should have a moratorium on the discussion. It's something we should revisit every year, and it's something that we should welcome feedback from. I mean, every one of the board members is staff at Detour has been a long time attendee, and so I encourage that feedback. What do you guys think? So it's something we should at least have the discussion every year to see where we're at, and certainly from like even the treasurer perspective. I mean, how a text perspective, they'll know like, well, this percentage of our stuff has increased, whether it be from the stuff that we rent or from the in-house production team. We've seen this percentage of increase over the year. So even though it could be something where we might not even we might have to look at it in terms of will we gain anything financially? We might not, but it might just cover the percentage of increase that we're seeing from the different vendors that we use, or like the tech stuff, or things like that. It might just sort of end up being a push, or will we have to consider instead of perhaps a $5 increase, would we have to consider a $10 increase to cover that, and then perhaps $2 per badge we end up seeing back to us. So I think it's it's probably more complex than those dollar amounts that I'm throwing out, but I think it's something to look at every year, just to make sure we've been able to say we looked at it. This is why we did or didn't make the decision, versus just not looking at it. So I don't know if there's
Agreed.
any
I think
comments
it
or
is something.
questions in chat or from anybody else on the board, but I guess that would, I wouldn't say it's my elevator pitch. It's an awful long elevator ride, but that's essentially what that was essentially my thoughts.
See, Troy,
And
it's hard
at
to
the
be
very
an
least-
elevator ride when you're standing in the doorway.
No,
Well,
the
it's an elevator pitch, but I pushed the stop button. And then I talked.
But no,
I feel it's, at the very least, it's the board's responsibility to, at the very least, consider it on an annual basis.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's I do agree, Troy. Just increasing it because we need more money would not be looked on good at this point. I can't see a valid reason why we would increase them at this point.
I mean, I don't see a reason why the board shouldn't at least talk about a potential increase for 2023, but I also don't think that we're in the 2022 cycle as of
Last week,
Monday last week. So I wouldn't, it's bad form to change the pricing when everybody's already looking at the pricing, and we sell early bird tickets at a
Yeah.
physical con. So if we were looking at a price change, it wouldn't take I wouldn't want to do a price change that wouldn't take effect before 2023. So I mean, I don't see anything wrong with looking at that to see, since the last time we raised a price or whatever, but not for 2022, because then it'll also have the optics of penalizing people who may have gotten a refund on their tickets.
Exactly.
Yeah. Troy?
So maybe we need to sort of try and figure out, is there a time that we can sort of look at, maybe that the old schedule that we were looking at maybe doesn't work anymore. Like if we wanted to look at raising the price, when would be or maybe it does work, when would be a good time to have that discussion? I think those conversations that were had in October were to consider raising the price for the upcoming convention, and that was sort of the latest date to do it. And then that was decided that was a little too soon. So if we wanted to consider raising the price, for another year out, would we want to do that right after, like, would we want to consider, I guess I'm just trying to figure out a timeline on when we would want to do that, not in a negative way, but just when would we think would be a good time?
Maybe the annual meeting.
so, as far as that, I would say let's do it before. So if we're discussing for the 2023 convention, no later than October to January timeframe of this coming year. So
So
2021.
basically a year in advance.
Yeah, little over a year in advance, just because that gives us a chance to look at our to see what some of our registration numbers are at that point. We're not just taking a blind shot in the dark. To see if that might warrant it. I would strongly avoid the month before and the 2 months after the convention, just because of we got a lot of stuff going on our own plates already, as well as the changing of the board members. That would be a pretty tumultuous time to be discussing those kinds of changes. Dave, I saw you had your hand up.
Oh, me? No, I think I
No,
forgot
Dave.
to put it down.
I lowered it. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts, or feedbacks, or telling me I'm dumb?
I feel that discussing a price range at least a year in advance of the convention is appropriate. That gives everybody enough heads up that a change is coming, and gives us enough chance to actually look at numbers.
Well, so if we're talking like October through January, that's really more of 14 to 16 months.
Yeah.
Gets by
Because if we're talking
October, or are you saying start the conversation in
I'm-
October?
I'm saying have a decision by January, I'll start
That might be too.
An
I would
idea.
have a decision by October, honestly. Because October is when, if you're working detour also, you're going to start ramping up around September, October. Like I was already warned, in my particular department, September, October actually gets pretty busy.
Okay.
So
But
here's what I'm thinking. So if we're keeping within sort of the context of things, um, so I'll fold it into sort of the executive post-mortem stuff that happens at the detour level. That way, the executives and I can talk about it, unless there's any sort of like vice chair changes or anything like that. Then the vice chair can talk with tech and gauge any kind of if there's any large increases in their pricing. Andy can talk to registration, etc. Then what we can do is make I don't know, a recommendation on where we're at, and then we will just inform the board on whether we are electing to raise prices um, uh, or not for that proposed year. For the so for if we were doing that this year, we would be, as Ashley said, we would be talking about 2023. And if the board has any questions, they can let us know. But that still keeps the decision in the detour household, that sort of thing, or detour as it was put forth. But it also lets the executives be part of it, lets them talk to I guess any staff that is certainly registration, tech. We can talk to the treasurer, that sort of thing, and then we can present that to the board as to why we're making that decision and answer any questions at that time.
Okay. John?
yeah, that would probably be
And then,
best because
so
that.
then with
that has
usually
to-
those executive postmortems are had, typically June, sort of before we, May, June, before we return to meetings, and that way it's not happening in that sort of September, October, return to period. So then, we can get that on the board agenda, June, July, maybe August, or within those summer months.
Okay.
And that way we can, like I said, then we can answer any questions at the board meeting.
So it's not quite 2 years in advance, but almost.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's probably gonna be about 18 months, but yeah, it's very near. Well, it'd be very very nearly. Be like 23 months, just about, or something like that. 20, 21, 22 months.
And something else to consider is also possibly raising the price for an ATC membership.
Trying to remember where the $15 came from. I feel like there was a reason for it.
Originally, it was
Actually,
20.
it was a decrease.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
originally 20, and it was lowered to 15.
Okay.
It would not be a bad idea to have a yearly check-in with membership dues along with badge pricing. Not that membership dues should affect badge pricing at all, but
Agreed.
we should be reviewing that occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, membership dues are kind of incorporated into badge pricing, so they kind of affect each other.
Yeah.
Just something else to keep in the back of your mind.
Yeah. You guys actually have a really low membership due.
We do.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on the topic?
That is all I had for it.
Yeah, if we're just gonna look forward to getting additional information from Detour, then yeah, that makes sense to me to wait a bit.
Yep.
Works for me. I'm good with that.
All right then. that is the last thing on our list for the meeting agenda this evening. Just as a reminder, the elections will be happening before the next board meeting. For any candidates who are elected at the next board meeting who are incoming members, you would be elected, and then at the next board meeting, you would be sitting with us as incoming board members, but you would not have voting rights to vote on any changes or decisions we made until the month after that. So it would be a month and a half from the day you are elected until you would be able to vote on things. Otherwise, if nobody else has any other questions or concerns, I think we can wrap up the meeting tonight.
Bonus.
Yeah, I will propose call a close to the meeting.
Second.
All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. If you guys do have any questions or anything, please do feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are just our first and last name at animatedtwincities.org. Otherwise, you can reach out to us at the ATC Board email or on our social media pages if you would prefer that. Thank you very much for coming, and you all have a great evening and drive safe out there.